Greetings, deceivers and non-deceivers. This is insane orangutan. I will admit and I will say that there is a lot of confusion in the world. And on a grand scale, handed down. What is handed down to us? There's a lot of confusion on a grand scale in this world. In the United States of America, I don't know how familiar other people are that are not what we call Americans. They're not United States people, but the bailouts have been a thing of confusion. There has been confusion about, well, should we have done the bailouts? The bailout, the government took the money and gave it to businesses. This is what Hitler did, Adolf Hitler did. And they were confused then. Let me go back in history a little bit. For what little I know about history, I'm not a history expert. But Hitler deceived the Germans into committing murder. Hitler combined business. Hitler had the government funding business, giving money to business, just like we're doing in the United States of America. Hitler wanted to join Europe together as one German empire, just like is happening in Europe today. There's a lot of deception, a lot of confusion running around. Before that, we had the Russian Revolution, where they told the people that if we kill these people, if we murder these people, everything will be all right. And Russia and its Soviet satellites, the Soviet Union, went on to murder lots of people. They said the people that had the money were the problem, and they murdered them. They said, they're keeping you poor. Just the same thing Hitler did in Germany. They said, these Jews are keeping you poor. A lot of the Jews were good at business. A lot of them, that's the stereotype anyway. A lot of them had money. And I believe a lot of the rich Jews escaped. No problem. They had money. But Hitler blamed the Jews, and I think a lot of the Jews were poor Jews. And then the Soviet Union blamed the rich too. Germany blamed the rich. It happened in Italy. It happened in Japan. And the whole thing about the best race and everything like that. We have the same type of deception. And it's important to recognize that people that are against bigotry may have the same type of attitudes, the same type of ideas that the people that were bigoted had. After that, I believe you had the Spanish communist state. Spain was ruled by a dictator. A vicious dictator. Also Brazil. Brazil had a military dictatorship. This was in, I believe it's about 70s for 60s and 70s for Spain, and the 60s, I think, for Brazil, something like that. There is a great deception in the world to where you would look at me, or someone would look at me and say I'm a deceiver. Because for one thing, they don't like what I'm saying. For another thing, that's what they're used to. When they don't like something, they call the people that say what they don't like deceivers. They call them liars, they call them crackpots. When you look at the Bible, what parts of the Bible we've gotten that haven't been corrupted, they've switched the Bible on us. It talks about Rome. Well, I believe it talks about Rome. It talks about the beast. And the beast had, I believe, 7 heads. I think that's what it was, 7 heads. So it had different heads. I believe what we're talking about is Rome. If you go to Rome today and you say this Christian country, then someone say, oh, okay. But if you don't know that, if you go to Rome and go around the Vatican, you have all these statues that look like they're to gods. Pagan Rome, I believe, has not changed. When we talk about the traditions handed down from the elders and from the apostles, I don't believe we have the context, we have the church today, to have those traditions handed down. We always look to the Bible because we don't have what the Bible talks about. Jesus said there's a broad way. There's a broad gate. There's a, wide is gate and broad is the path. There's a wide gate and a broad path that leads to destruction. And the many there are that go thereby. And there's a narrow gate. A narrow gate and a narrow way that leads to life, and few there are who find it. So when the entire Italian subcontinent becomes Christian, pardon me if I don't believe you. We had somebody say that in Congress. We had a Katrina hurricane. It was called Hurricane Katrina. It was a hurricane called Katrina. And somebody stood up in Congress, and it's on YouTube. I don't know how to find it exactly. I don't know how to tell you to find it. And they said, trust us. Somebody stood up. It was when George W. Bush was president. The second Bush, George Bush. Like an empire. And he said, pardon me if I don't believe you. He said, trust us. Trust us. The people who gave us Katrina, trust us. Excuse me. He said something like, excuse me if we don't believe you. Pardon me for not believing you. Why do we believe things? Why do we believe the Bible is handed down perfectly? I will admit, one of the reasons that convinced me that Jesus Christ was right was the Bible. That's because when truth is said in a certain way, when certain things are expressed, you know their reality. Somebody can tell you a lie and you can believe it. Someone can tell you the truth. And the way they tell you the truth and what you know tells you it's the truth. You should be able to at least sometimes tell the difference between a truth and a lie. The Bible was how I realized that Jesus Christ was the way. The Bible was not how I came to faith in Jesus Christ. That was preaching, which Paul says, how will they hear without a preacher? How will they believe? How will they hear without a preacher? How, Paul basically said they need to receive God. And he said, how can they hear without a preacher? He said hearing comes through, believing, faith comes through, or believing or faith comes by hearing. And he said, how will they hear without a preacher? How will they how will they have a preacher unless someone is sent? So while we go back to the Bible, and I have no objection to going back to the Bible, especially if you've got the right stuff, if you've got a passage in the Bible that is accurately translated, I've got no problem with going back to the Bible. But Paul went to the preacher and he said people have to preach. That was before the New Testament. Before the New Testament was all neatly put together, we had people preaching Jesus Christ. It's unfortunate we don't have that today. But what I would call the beast, the many-headed beast, it comes out of Rome. Rome approves translations of the Bible. Translations of the Bible is mistranslated. Often. That's why people go back to the Greek. You could go back to the Greek, you could go back to the Hebrew and learn those to get a better understanding. But a lot of times we go back to the Greek, go back to the Hebrew just to correct the translators, which is ridiculous. that we can translate the Bible. In some cases, we who do not know, or who are not experts necessarily, we're not always experts in Greek and Hebrew, but we can translate the Bible better than translators. And then we say our religion is Bible based. No, it is based in the faith. People are deceivers and users, and that is what has happened to Christianity. And Rome, I don't believe the Roman Empire ever fell. It's like the falling of the Soviet Union. I don't believe it ever happened. It's like the Soviet Union. Now we accept them. Now we accept Rome. The capital of the pagan empire, Rome, is right where the Vatican is. So anyway, don't trust your scriptures. I'd say trust God. And then the question is, how does that come about? Okay, thank you. God bless.